Welcome to Candid Dialogue, and Lorraine Bayer and Lorraine Bayer. Each week, we'll bring you wholesome conversations about things that matter to you, things that matter to us. We address life topics, relationships to business, and our personal spiritual things. Now, here are your hosts, and Lorraine.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Candid Dialogues with Plummer and Lorraine, the show where we talk about things that matter to you and things that matter to us. I am Plummer and this beautiful lady right here is Lorraine.
We are so excited about this segment. We are closing out Black History Month.
Yes.
And we've had, over the last few weeks, we've had a guest on and they've been just giving us some really great features. But today, oh my goodness, I think that we are closing it out with a bang.
Yes.
So we have a special guest with us today. His name is Amadou Massally, a man of two worlds. He attended college and worked in America for Fortune 500 companies before he returned to his native Sierra Leone in 2009. While there, he worked in both the private and the public sectors. Relevant to our conversation today is the work he has done in making the reconnection with African Americans, especially those who are direct descendants of West Africans who were brought here to work on rice plantations, the industry that created wealth to this great United States. Mm-hmm. He has been on this journey since 2006, and he has not slowed down.
He has not slowed down, honey. I am really excited for this. Especially since Amadou and I, we are family friends. Our families know each other. We grew up together. And when I found out the work that he had been doing, I had heard about the Gullah Geechee, but it's just one of those things, right? But he has really focused a lot of attention, not only on that, but on making that reconnection. So folks, without further ado,
Let's see how we got here. Let's talk a little bit about how we got here. A few months ago.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Several months ago, we, I think it was right as the pandemic started, we are at home and Plummer brought up this documentary about Sierra Leone. And we sat down together and we watched it. And when we thought about this Black History Month, I thought about the documentary and I said, you know what, it would be so great. I said, honey, it would be so great if we can get him on the show just to talk about the fact that we live in North Carolina and just a short ride away in South Carolina, this whole documentary was done.
Yeah, and I said, I got the hookup.
He got the hookup, and here we are today, guys.
Hey, let's go ahead and bring Amadou on, and then we'll take it from there. There he is. Amadou, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel relaxed to be here.
You feel relaxed.
There you go.
You look relaxed. I put on my best Africana for you because I know you were coming on.
I see. I can't match that. You have the hat on too,
Yes. Well, thank you so much for doing this. We're really, really excited. I know folks are going to be blessed by this because there's a lot of knowledge that you have acquired over the years, even as you do this. What I want to do, let me just kind of set it up. We're just going to ask Amadou a few questions first, right? And then there is a documentary that Lorraine mentioned. I'm going to show that. I'm going to show about half of it. It's very educational. But why don't you start, first of all, by telling us, Amadou, how did this all come about? Where did this passion for roots come about? I know that's the word roots growing up, it was an inside talk, right? But really, where did this passion come from?
That's a good question because I can't answer it. But I can tell you, where my journey started. As now I'm a self-acclaimed Sierra Leonean Gullah man. Yeah. In 2006, I went to see a film or sneak preview of the film African American Lives that Skip Gates was putting out.
Okay.
Not sure if you remember it. Some people may remember it. And in that film, we identified a couple of prominent African Americans that have, roots in Africa. Oprah Winfrey was one such person, and also Whoopi Goldberg. I remember that. But anyway, we took a trip from DC, myself and 4 of my members of the Sierra Leone Network, which was an organization that I was president of in 2006. So we went down there because someone invited us to go and have this sneak preview whilst we were there after the film. Because I had known about the Gullahs. I first realized or discovered the Gullahs when Ambassador Andrew Young in 2004 took his DNA test, and that pointed to Sierra Leonean ancestry. Andrew Young.
Okay.
That was the first time I heard of these guys called Gullahs, because my aunt that I stayed with then mentioned, the links to these folks in South Carolina that are Gullahs. We call them Gullahs, Sierra Leone. Yeah, we say Gullahs.
Right. Yeah. Gullah, right.
So, and then eventually I read a story about Andrew Young's, DNA test and a story that included the Gullah Geechee story. All right, fast forward to 2006, and after that night we watched that film, I saw a couple of brothers working at the hotel. So I asked them, I said, "Hey man, are you guys Gullahs?" I mean, here I am thinking that every South Carolinian that's black it's a Gullah Geechee. And they said, "No, man, those guys are down on the coast, so to speak, right?" I mean, I think they were a little offended by it, in fact, when I asked them that. Wow. All right, but the next day we drove down to Hilton Head Island. We were with someone, Dr. Hilton Bowley, who had traveled from Florida to come see the sneak preview with us. But he had also gone to Hilton Head and engaged Emery Campbell. Now, Emery Campbell, this was in 2006. Emery Campbell had gone to Sierra Leone in 1989, right? The first Gullah homecoming. He led that group, 13 of them. So we got on Emery's tour. And whilst we were on his tour, it was his brother actually that did the tour that day. He was, giving us explanations about, the life on this island. And before the island was breached, it was isolated. That really, struck me when he said 100% of this island was owned by Gullahs. However, in 2006, maybe 10% or less was owned by them. Yeah.
Wow.
So that, yes. 2006.
That's a whole other story on its own.
That's a whole other story, but interestingly enough, it piqued my interest. But even more so, he took us to a beach. I think there were only 2 public beaches then left, because developers had made every other beach private property. So whilst I was on that beach that day, I was facing the Atlantic Ocean, and I hadn't gone home to Sierra Leone since I left. Now, I left in 1983. This was in 2006. So 23 years had gone by. Whoa. And at that beach, yeah, for some reason, I just envisioned Sierra Leone being on the other side of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, where I was standing. And something came over me. I can't explain it, but I was moved by that moment, thinking that, I hadn't been home in 23 years, but over there is my home. This is the closest I've been to home since I've been in America. I even thought about swimming across the ocean back.
That's a moment. That is a moment, right? You just described.
Yeah, that hit me. And then another thing that really moved me to get more involved in this, I saw the people down there. They looked like folks I had left in Sierra Leone 20 years ago. The features, they were so African. And I can explain quickly why the features were so strong. African, I mean, the African features are still so strong is because they were isolated from those plantations due to malaria and yellow fever. Yeah. So they were able to keep their African, not just their culture, but even their DNA, I guess, the genes. So,
right.
So you find that in the Gullah Geechee culture, you see very prominent African features in these African Americans. But anyway, so that's how I got involved in all of this. I came back to DC. I wrote a long episode about my discovery, so to speak, my personal discovery. And it was in the forum of Sierra Leoneans. And then someone wrote back to me. I don't remember who it was. They asked me if I had met a guy named Joseph Opala. So I thought Opala was a Nigerian guy. But apparently it was a Caucasian American, a Polish American who had spent some time in Sierra Leone and did a lot of work. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But they put me in touch with Opala, and the rest is history. I've been going.
Yes, sir. Right? Yes, sir. And you're going to keep going, right?
Yes, sir.
You're going to keep going. You're going to keep going.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So that's where it started, to answer your question.
Amadou, there's a scripture that that came to mind when I thought about all the work that you've been doing. And this particular scripture, and for me, it kind of speaks to the importance of our heritage and where we came from. But this scripture in Proverbs 22 and 28 said, "Do not remove the ancient landmark which your fathers have set." And in all of this, how do you think, or how do you see the work that you've done influencing the younger generation?
Well, first of all, I think the work that we do to try to sort of relieve this history and bring it back to life, because that's what I think we do at Femme Boutique. It's important because for two reasons. First of all, we have to have our own narratives correct. Not only do we have to have it correct, but our people need to understand our narrative too, or our narratives as people of color, Black people all over the world, not just the US. And one way to do so is to bring that history, accurate history, to the extent possible, in front of younger generations, both on the African side and the American side. I firmly believe that Africa will never reach her maximum potential outside of the diaspora, outside of our diaspora.
Okay. Meaning the diaspora needs to be involved.
Yes.
Exactly. Otherwise, we wouldn't realize our full potential, our maximum potential.
Wow. Well, that's a whole other show too, because now you're talking brain drain and all of that stuff, right?
So that's one of my beliefs.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. You mentioned Femme Boutique. For those of you who don't know, Femme Boutique is an organization that you started, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
And Femme Boutique means in Creole, it means family tree. Femme Boutique, yeah. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you for interpreting that.
Well, you should know that, right? So, well, hey, listen, I'll tell you what we can do. Let me ask you one more question, and then we're just gonna go into this. They've done a fantastic work. Was it 2019? You took a group of how many folks from the Gullah region?
About 54 in total Americans went on this tour.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
It's the largest group to ever go on a heritage tour to Sierra Leone.
Yes.
Not only that, it was the deepest cultural experience ever for roots tourism to Sierra Leone.
Well, we're gonna watch some of that. So folks, buckle up. But
wait a minute. Here's what I want to do, and I don't know how much time we have, but before we lead up to the film, I wanted to tell a story that I've never told before, and there's no better day to tell it than on the last day of Black History Month in 2021,
There you
post-COVID.
go.
Well, after we've
Well,
experienced
hold
COVID.
on, folks. Folks, for those of you who are tuning in, let me do a station identification, right?
Yes.
You are watching Candid Dialogues with Plummer and Lorraine. We have a special guest on here with us, Amadou Massally. And yes, he is very keen on making the reconnection with the Gullah Geechee and the Sierra Leone roots. So, Amadou, go ahead and tell us this story. You heard it here first.
Well, first of all, I mean, I've never done this in public. In other words, talk about how we got to know that there's a connection between Sierra Leone and the Gullah Geechee. Yeah. So some of you may be familiar with Lorenzo Turner, Dr. Lorenzo Turner, who in 1949 wrote his masterpiece book, Africanisms in the Gullah Dialect. Is the title of that book. So in that book, Lorenzo Turner was able to identify a lot of things about Sierra Leone. Let me put it this way. He recorded African tongue, Africanisms in this dialect called Gullah, which is actually a language. It's a full language on its own, the Gullah language. So Lorenzo Turner, when he was writing his book, recorded lots of Gullahs speaking or singing or counting or calling names. He was able to record names such as Bintu or Tamba or even Amadou. Yeah?
Wow.
Gullahs have these names.
Those are very African Sierra Leonean names.
Yes. Gullahs have these names. They call them basket names. Basket names because, it's more within the family. It's like hidden. So you see a Paul, Tamba, Thomas, yeah, a Gullah man with a basket name, or Amelia Isatu McCowan, yeah. So these are basket names. Lorenzo Turner was able to record over 3,000 such names from different African languages.
Wow! Among the
Gullah, and also hundreds of African loan words like Big Eye, which means big eyes, which we also use in Sierra Leone, referring to someone who's greedy. Yeah. We have a word like on top of. Gullahs use pantap. We use pantap. They mean the same thing. And it also recorded, counting in the Fula language up to 19, from 1 to 19. I always wondered why not 20. Why did you not get to 20? But in the Fula language. Fula language is common to both Sierra Leone and Guinea, or more Sierra Leone. But back then also there were no boundaries, delineating Sierra Leone from Guinea. It was just a region. Yes. Right. So Lorenzo Turner, in his work, was able to find out these things. However, he never sort of identified Gullah language to Sierra Leonean languages. That was not his role. His role was to refute or rebut the common ideology back then that these Gullah people don't know how to speak English, they're dumb, that's why they speak like they do. And Lorenzo Turner sought out to refute that. And he was able to prove that these are African words in the Gullah dialect that these guys are speaking with. So that was what he was trying to do back then. He did not make the link to Sierra Leone particularly. It was an Englishman in 1965, a guy called Paul Hare, who had studied Lorenzo Turner's book 15 years later. Of course, that was back in the days in the 1960s. This was 1965 when he did his when he published his review. In his review, Paul Hare, who had studied Sierra Leonean history pre-1600s, he was able to tell that these are Sierra Leonean words or Sierra Leonean names. But he said to himself, wow, how many of these African names or texts are in Sierra Leonean languages? He was shocked by the fact that Sierra Leone has always been a small country, small population. We're only about 6-7 million today. I mean, back then in those 1600s, I don't know. Well, I mean, so he was shocked that from such a small population, there could be so many words in this Gullah Geechee language from Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
25% in total. So 25% of all the words documented by the great Lorenzo Turner are from Sierra Leonean, languages, names, loanwords, songs. In fact, they recorded. Lorenzo Turner did. He recorded the longest text ever preserved by an American family. Yeah, 5 lines long, and it was a Mende song from Sierra Leone.
That's a key. That's a key. That's a key. That Mende song you're talking about, I think it's mentioned in the documentary. Yeah,
it is. It is.
Okay.
It also has its own documentary called "The Language Ukraine."
Okay.
So and it's based on the 1990. I mean, it was published or released in 1997, but it was based on the 1997 tour that the Moran family, who still have that song here in the United States, in Harris Neck, Georgia area. Yeah, that was remarkable that we could trace a song 250 years down the line. Yeah. Anyway,
And so,
I was on. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Let me talk about Paul here. How we looked at Lorenzo Turner's stuff and say, "Wow, Sierra Leoneans. I mean, the Sierra Leonean languages, in here a lot." But he couldn't tell what caused it. He said, "I don't know what the problem is or what the issue is here. Maybe some historians may explain it, but it is just uncanny that you can have so many words from Sierra Leonean languages in this Gullah thing." And he never mentioned rice because he didn't know. In fact, he offered this finding or discovery after reviewing Turner's book as a mystery. It didn't make sense. Then, moving on, in 1965, a gypsy named Dr. Ian Hancock, who's a friend of mine today in Austin, Texas, he's a specialist in the Creole languages, not just Sierra Leone's Creole languages all over the world, Portuguese, Caribbean, whatever. He studied about 20 to 30 of these languages because his dissertation for his PhD was on the vocabulary and the origin of Creole. So he knows the vocabulary of every origin of the words in Creole. Yeah. During the time he did this review in 1965, Dr. Ian Hancock was an editor of a journal called Sierra Leone Language Review, set up in London, 1965. It later became West African Languages Review. But Hancock published his study. What he cited that after looking at all these different Creole languages, 2 of them are almost unintelligible. They were, you can't tell the difference between them pretty much. And it was Gullah and Sierra Leone's Creole. Of course, were there words in Nigeria's Pidgin? Yes. Were there things in Ghanaian Creole, they call it? Yes. But none of them came close to not just the words, but sentence structure and idioms. Sierra Leone's Creole and Gullah were the thing. He also couldn't explain why. I mean, because they didn't understand the history side. They understood languages, these guys. Paul here was a historian, but he was more 1600s type of history. So the mystery still hung from 1965 to 1974, when a black man by the name of Peter Wood wrote a book called Black Majority. Black Majority. So Peter Wood was able to make the links that these Africans that were in these South Carolina plantations and Georgia 60 years later were from West Africa, because
so now
the colonies.
The link is made now.
Yes.
The link was not made. Amadou, what I want to do, because I don't want to, you're going to have to come back again, because I am feeling that there's a reservoir of stuff, and I'm trying to take some notes here and pay attention. I'm like, oh no, you're going to have to come back again. What I want to do, right? What I want to do, I want to, because I have seen the documentary, I've seen a documentary that you guys put together. I've seen, the group of folks that went with you. I want people to get a taste of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I want people to get a taste of that, and that way, when
whet their appetite.
Right, whet their appetite, because I know, but for coronavirus, there would have been another trip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real soon.
We're going to do a virtual tour this year.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Ah.
Well, so please set up the documentary for us. Let me run it. Let me run some of it, and then we'll come back and pick up from there.
Sure.
Set it up for us. How it came.
How do you want me to set it up? I mean, to show you the link, just play the video from here, you mean?
No. I'm going to play the video. I'm going to just start from the beginning.
You're telling me to set up the
Yeah.
I just want you to tell
us,
how you came about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll be quick. First of all, this is not the first homecoming trip. This is the fourth one. We've had one in 1989 when the Emery Campbell and this group went home. We had another one in 1997 based on the Mendes song I just described. And then we have the one in 2005 when Priscilla went home. Now, this is the most unique of all this. Well, I don't want to say of all the stories. They're unique in their own ways. But Priscilla is the only person that can identify 7 generations later that they came from Sierra Leone. I didn't say it the right way. There's a lady in Charleston, South Carolina called Tourmaline Polite, who's the 7th generation descendant of a 10-year-old girl that was taken from Sierra Leone in 1756. 1756. Wow. And
she's
this is not based on...
She's a direct 7th generation descendant.
Direct, down the line. And her children are the 8th generation descendants. So this is unheard of in the world. No one's have this kind of story. And it's based on historical evidence from ship records, because the ship that, anyway, I don't want to get into this. We'll come again on another day. So,
all right, let's do that.
So those 3 preceded our trip. And our trip was not supposed to be 50 odd people. We were going to do something 20 max. But it snowballed into 50 people. And we weren't saying no, because we knew that, we already knew that South Carolina State was going to send their TV crew based on the program alone. So we knew that we had something special in our hands. So yeah, we said, bring it on, come on. So we kept adding and adding and adding. I'll never do it again though.
Well, let's bring it on. Let's bring it on for the folks. So thank you very much. We're gonna watch a bit of this right now. Let's bring it on for the folks. Let me see. Here we go.
This program was supported in part by South Carolina Humanities.
When the plane landed, the tears just kept coming and I couldn't get up to stop. You hear about a place, you dream about a place, you have all kind of imaginations, but when you get there and you finally realize that you're where your family started from, that's it empowers you in such a way that I can't even begin to express it.
The Gullah, also known as the Gullah Geechee, are descendants of people from Sierra Leone and other neighboring countries of the West African Rice Coast. They were kidnapped, enslaved, and taken to the coastal low country of South Carolina and North Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. Over the centuries, the Gullah Geechee have retained a deep connection to Africa and a culture shaped by the dynamic currents of the Atlantic world.
May I have attention the gatehouse passenger Shinkai?
In December 2019, a group of Gullah Geechee cultural ambassadors boarded a plane for Sierra Leone. They included performers, scholars, teachers, artists, students, and business people. They were taking part in the latest of a remarkable series of homecomings that have nurtured an evolving relationship between Sierra Leone and the Gullah Geechee. There have been 3 previous Gullah Geechee homecomings to Sierra Leone, all organized in part by historian Joseph Opala, whose research helped to establish the historic link between the two cultures.
In 1988, President Joseph Momo of Sierra Leone visited Penn Center on St. Helena Island, South Carolina. And President Momo invited Emory Campbell, then the director of Penn Center, to organize a homecoming of Gullah people to Sierra Leone. That took place the next year in 1989. The next one took place in 1997. It's called the Moran family homecoming.
So they moved around.
And that involved a family of Gullah or Geechee people from coastal Georgia who had preserved a song in the Mende language of Sierra Leone. The last homecoming that I worked on was called Priscilla's Homecoming. We had found Tomlin Polite in Charleston, South Carolina. She was the great, 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 great granddaughter of a little girl brought on a slave ship from Sierra Leone in the year 1756. That was also just a national event that just caught everybody's imagination.
The 2019 homecoming was different from the earlier ones.
This recent homecoming was led by Amadou Massally, Sierra Leonean. I worked on homecomings that were patronized by the government of Sierra Leone. The U.S. Embassy backed them. These were state visits. What Amadou has done, though, is to organize a homecoming by Sierra Leoneans and Gullahs themselves.
When I go southwest, east and north, I will always come back home.
What's happening now is that Sierra Leoneans and Gullahs have already picked up on the family relationship, and they're going with it. And that's really something that's great to see.
This trip has been in the works for some years now. I've been building relationships since 2006 among many of these Gullah leaders that you see with us. And it's happening now, to my surprise and astonishment, because of the number of people that we have out here and also the quality of Gullah leaders that agreed to come on our tour.
That first night there, we got to the hotel and they came and the dancers and we met the chief. The spirit of the people there is so great, so welcoming, inviting. The reception of us, it was so awesome. And they really made you feel like you are theirs. You are sister and auntie and cousin. And right there it started. Man, it started coming up through the ground and through my feet, resonated through all of me, and it just grew and grew and grew throughout the trip.
Our forefathers want to communicate to you that we leave these people in your hands. All the protection, you prevent them from accidents. You wish them all the good things. We are taking this alcohol. So that's why we are throwing this one tonight, so that you can get
These guys are our relatives. Okay. If you don't know about them, we'll be here for about 10 days. Before we leave Sierra Leone, you will know a whole lot about this Gullah Geechee. We appreciate it.
More and more people are gravitating towards roots tourism, towards heritage tourism, and they will want to see the real deal. That is what I think Sierra Leone has an advantage, because like no other country, we can show our links with African Americans are real.
Bunce Island, about 20 miles from Freetown, was the largest British slave fortress on the Rice Coast. From 1670 until the English slave trade was abolished in 1807, it was the last glimpse of home for tens of thousands of enslaved Africans. Today, only ruins remain at Bunce Island, a testament to the horrors of the slave trade.
He woke me early this morning, yeah.
I didn't know what I expected. I didn't know if I would have this strong emotional experience. So folk were down there singing and doing stuff, and I was gone. I was up in the castle by myself. I was mostly aware of the trees and how the roots have been tearing this building down, and how this is what it looks like so many years after this castle was decommissioned. And what's it going to look like in another 100 years and another 100 years? I was very aware of the earth reclaiming it, and this kind of idea that there's this cycle of pain or suffering and oppression and all of that. I didn't feel it as overwhelming pain. I felt it as part of this evolution of Gullah Geechee, of African American, of the diaspora.
Time ticks and the ruins fade away, but haunting memories forever stay.
Wonderful.
I definitely heard a lot about Bunce Island from my dad. This is his second time going to Sierra Leone, so he created a whole CD and book, and I was already sort of anticipating some of the pain that he interpreted in those creative projects. I made a point to sort of move around Bunce Island separately. At one point, I just was sitting by myself in what we were told was the pen where the enslaved women and children were. Being in that space made me think this might be a root of people feeling like they don't matter.
When we went to Bunce Island, you could still feel the energy. And so did my grandson, who was with me at that point.
I'll take one more.
Anybody who has that strong of an energy and a spirit that still stays in a location for over 200 years tells you something about the people themselves.
I'm a photographer, and I'm out here taking as many pictures as I can just to document the history, because a lot of people back home don't know about this place because they don't teach this. I didn't know about it until this trip, where my grandma, she told me on the way here about Bunce Island and the importance of it. I'm 23 years old and I never heard of it. So it's people back home that I feel need to know about this place. So that's why I'm here documenting as much as I can.
Bunce Island, going there in particular, that's where I made the connection, and that's where the full circle happened for me. It was there that I understood. That's where we came from.
As we're going from place to place, north, south, east, and west of Sierra Leone, going into more rural areas, farming areas, you get glimpses of rice fields.
Rice is a staple food in Sierra Leone. Most Sierra Leoneans eat it at least twice a day. For them, as well as for the Gullah Geechee, rice is both a favorite dish and a part of their history.
Colonists saw that these things matched and that they could grow rice here, but they didn't know how to. And we were the experts at it. The Gullah Geechee people, before we were Gullah Geechee.
Africans from the Rice Coast had developed a system for cultivating rice using dikes that controlled the flow of water in and out of the fields. It worked perfectly for the southern lowcountry. In the 18th and 19th centuries, rice created more wealth in South Carolina and Georgia than any other crop. By 1860, the South Carolina rice plantations were producing more than 14 million pounds of rice a year.
Then we come upon this one area where the rice field is almost where we can just touch it. And we on the van just like, we gotta stop. Can we go to the rice field? Everyone is just like, we're gonna stop. They were harvesting. They had their machetes and beautiful men. And I was like, wow, these are my people. They gave us some bouquets of rice.
all Gullah Geechee people, South Carolina, Georgia, we all love rice. And there's nothing more beautiful than coming upon this original Sierra Leonean rice.
All I could think about was, this is why we were brought over. Carolina gold rice is what it was known for at that time, and it made people immensely wealthy off of our expertise, knowledge, and slave labor.
When you talk about South Carolina being one of the wealthiest colonies, one of the wealthiest British colonies in the world, well, why was that? It was because they relied tremendously on the technical and managerial skills of a group of enslaved Africans who knew how to grow what became the most popular commercial export, which is rice.
Kabbalah is in the mountainous north of Sierra Leone. As in the rest of the country, residents speak their regional tongue as well as a Creole language called Creole. It is similar in many ways to Gullah, which is spoken by the Gullah Geechee. Creole and Gullah are both Creole languages with roots in English and African tongues. They originated with the enslavement and trade of West Africans, allowing people to communicate across many different cultures. Gullah is the only distinctly English and African Creole language in the United States. Over time, speaking Gullah became something to be ashamed of.
It was the effort to get out of the Gullah Geechee culture, assimilate. Go someplace, people used to tell us, go someplace and find some culture.
In more recent years, speaking Gullah has become a source of pride.
As a child, I was told not to speak Gullah. That was one of the things, you have to speak perfect English. And that's why sometimes they joke with me now that I'm in the group that I speak proper. And they laugh at me.
When we were in Kabbalah, there was a lady that I was dancing with, and some other ladies came around me, and they started talking to me in their native tongue. I had no idea what they were saying to me. So I looked over at Dr. Eric Crawford from Coastal, and I said, "Come here, Eric, come here." So he came over, and one of the ladies looked at him, and she said, "Gladi for Siona, take for come see we." And I was like, "But you didn't say it." I understood exactly what she said. So when we listen to Gullah and then we go over to Creole, this is that common denominator so that no matter where we are, we're still connected, we're still family, and we can still communicate.
The university students who assisted us, I would listen to them and I wanted to know what it was that they were speaking. Many of them Creole, but they would speed through it. I had been speaking with one of the tour coordinators about this, and he said, ask them to speak Kringlish, not Creole, Kringlish. And when I did that, they slowed it down and I could more readily understand what they were saying. In Gullah, we said this. Yes. In Creole, they said this for this. In Gullah, we said that. That. In Creole, they said that for that. In Gullah, we said honor. Honor. In Creole, they say una for you. In Gullah, we say woman. Woman. In Creole, they say woman for woman. Yeah, we talk the same way, small. Yeah, we talk the same way, just leave it.
Kabbalah is at the base of a steep hill leading to the ruins of a centuries-old fortified town, Old Yagala.
There's a mesa where Africans moved their village up to defend themselves against slave invaders who were also other Africans. So whilst up there, they could see for miles away as we went up there and saw for ourselves that, yeah, this place was really a special place.
It was a hard climb up the hill, but I was determined to make it.
It's a grind, brother. It's a grind, but we're gonna get it. Yeah, we're gonna get it.
What gets me more than anything is the tenacity and the ingenuity of the people to come up here to get out of the way of the enemy. And now today is very surreal because to me, it tells me that they had a desire to be free. There's nothing like freedom. And what I see here today is freedom in display.
It's important for us to tell the resistance story because you don't hear much about it. And I think it brings some African pride to Black people to learn that even in Africa, we resisted the slave trade.
Rogbonko is a small village, the only place in Sierra Leone where women still sew coiled baskets. Its residents welcome visitors with music and dancing in the street.
That was very different than the welcoming ceremonies to other villages. Everyone was part of this processional, which I learned. That was the boo-boo dance. You dance and you move forward. Then you stop and you dance. And then dance some more and move forward. It goes on. You advance to the site where there is to be a ceremony.
On this day, the special event involved Nakia Wigfall, a Gullah basket maker from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, the 7th generation of her family to sew coiled baskets from native sweetgrass.
We all came into the village and there were plain instruments, which they made from the materials in the neighborhood, like bamboo, and they were dancing, and of course put me out front, making me feel like a queen, very special. When I went to Sierra Leone, I had a mission. I wanted to sit and make baskets with a basket maker. I brought in some starters because of time. I wanted the basket makers there to actually work on my starters. Sitting there with those basket makers brought back memories to when me and my cousins and my sisters, we would always just sit around making baskets, telling jokes, having fun, talking, having a good time. I felt that when I was there, because you had generations, you have a grandmother, you have the mother, children. It was special. It was special to me. As you can see, this was the bottom, and they started working on it. Now, this grass is actually the grass from Sierra Leone. It looks identical to the sweet grass that I have here. This particular basket, basically almost the same as that, a basket maker in Sierra Leone started off with the bottom of it, and I started sewing on it with my own materials from here. And when I get through with this basket, it will be a rice fanner, as we would call it.
Sweetgrass basket making is closely tied to the history of the South Carolina Rice Kingdom. The ancestors of Gullah Geechee people used coiled baskets for hauling and processing rice and brought that tradition with them to America. In particular, the flat, wide fanner basket used for separating the kernel from the chaff was vital to the rice economy.
Going back to West Africa and sitting with the basket makers in the village and connecting it to home in the whole Gullah Geechee tradition, to me, it's like we're the same people. They're just generations of basket makers on the other side, whereas we're generations of basket makers on this side, and we'll be sewn together forever. In some way, I always knew that there was something missing, and now that I went to Sierra Leone, as well as Senegal, I feel that I found what was missing.
Taking a trip or a pilgrimage over to Sierra Leone as a Gullah Geechee person really helps you to see and feel the connection that has been told that we have. Seeing how in a village setting that it really does take that village to raise the child. And that's always been the case here in our communities, in our Gullah communities here, that it takes the entire village.
Alain Locke, major philosopher of the Harlem Renaissance, said nothing is more galvanizing than the sense of a cultural past. So for the Gullah Geechee people, to understand that they have a very specific cultural past, and that this very specific cultural past comes from a very specific place in West Africa. I mean, that's strong.
The village of Sineun Ungola has special meaning for the Gullah Geechee. This is where scholars located a song that linked a family from Georgia directly to Sierra Leone. The data that informed their discovery was collected by linguist Lorenzo Turner. In 1931, Turner visited the Georgia Sea Islands to record people speaking and singing in Gullah. He recognized one song, sung by a Gullah Geechee woman named Amelia Dolly, as being in Mende, an African language spoken primarily in Sierra Leone. Decades later, Joseph Opala and two colleagues set out to find the song in Sierra Leone.
I formed a team with the Sierra Leonean linguist, Tazif Karoma, and with Cynthia Schmidt, who's an American ethnomusicologist. We actually decided over our Christmas break to just go from village to village in that area, playing the song. We got to this one village, and a young woman began to sing along in her language from the very first moments of that recording. We then went to look for it in the United States. Turner had recorded it from a woman, Amelia Dolly. We wondered if she had children or grandchildren who might still remember the song. And it turned out that her daughter, Mary Moran, could still sing that song all these years later.
In 1997, Mary Moran and her family went to Sierra Leone, where Mary met Bindu Jabati, the woman who knew the Mende song. Centuries ago, an African woman carried a song with her across the ocean. Now her song has helped her descendants to trace their roots. The Moran family homecoming was documented in the film The Language You Cry In, which is broadcast in Sierra Leone every year on Independence Day.
Wow, 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 wow.
You like that?
This is, yeah. I mean, I've watched this several times, Amadou, and it is just, every time I watch it, I get a little overwhelmed. Yeah. Thank you so much. And folks, by the way, the documentary is available. I'm going to put a link. It's available on YouTube, correct? Is that correct?
That's correct. We have a channel. Yeah.
Yeah. The full length documentary is available. You say you have a channel. What's the channel?
It's called Fambultique on YouTube. Fambultique. So,
okay.
But it's going to be yes. There's going to be a link on our website that'll go directly. So if you can't, remember that, just go to Candid Dialogues. Yes. Okay. So that's going to be there. This is amazing. All the comments that I'm hearing. Okay, so I want to throw one question that came out, and it is, let me go back to it. It said, they want to know, is there a difference between Gullah and Geechee?
I had a show a couple of days ago, and the same question came up. There are different stories around that, but here's what I know. Those in South Carolina who care about this topic refer to themselves as Gullahs. In Georgia, they refer to themselves as Geechees. That's overarching, but there are, other minor sort of, for example, in the Geechee world in Georgia, they also have those they know as saltwater Geechees versus river Geechees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. And but also, I've heard once by a professor at the university in California when I went to the Gullah Geechee, the Charles Joyner Institute of Gullah Geechee Studies, their first African diaspora event. He said that Geechees are those who sort of ran away from some plantations, and settled around the Ogeechee River in Georgia.
Ah.
Yeah, so that's why I said there are different twists or elements to the story.
Yeah.
But to be safe, this is what I do. I call every one of those kinfolk of ours Gullah Geechee.
There you go. There you go. There you go. And it's starting from what? From North Carolina all the way down to, you can find them on the coast, right? All the way down.
Yes, well, there's a corridor. There's a Gullah Geechee Heritage Cultural Corridor Commission. Something, I don't know if I said it right, but there's a commission that sort of spans the area where Gullah culture is being preserved by these United States on purpose, and rightfully so.
Okay.
We have a young lady, Lisa Simmons. She said, I knew a lady who spoke Geechee. She's American. And she said, I wonder if she's still alive. So, I mean, this runs so deep. But I want you to talk about the virtual tour that you were going to be
Yeah. The virtual tour speaks to, in fact, we're having one in March. It'll be the first one for a private school out of Atlanta, Georgia. So what we will do, our tours are based on three elements that are, tied to this transatlantic slave trade. The slave trade itself, the transatlantic slave trade itself being one of them, and the resistance to it, because we have a place in Sierra Leone where we can show resistance. It's in the film to the transatlantic slave trade by Africans in Africa. That's not much talked about. You don't really hear those types of stories that Africans.
Let me just say, because I think you said that earlier. It is the resistance to Africans, right? By Africans, because
yes,
the slave trade was fed by Africans.
Yes,
capturing. I mean, originally started with Caucasians, but then when Africans saw that there was business there, they would.
No, it's the other way around. It started with Africans. Africans, we had slaves within our own communities as Africans, even before the man came. Yeah. So, I would have dared any ship captain who was a white man to go into the interior and go look for slaves. I would have dared them do that. So it was more the Africans that would bring other Africans down to the shore.
Okay.
Where the captains will purchase them as cargo.
And this is not talked about much. It really is not talked about much at all.
No,
but it is history.
It is, and the third part is abolition of freedom. Sierra Leone and the Gullah Geechees or African Americans have a two-way connection. Not only did folks come as enslaved people, but as freed people, some of our folks went back. Yeah, and that's unique with regard to African Americans and any other African country.
Okay.
You can say Liberia a little bit, yeah, and that would be true. But Liberia didn't really participate much in the transatlantic slave trade. In fact, based on some of the research I've done, I want to believe that most of those Liberians that were sold into slavery, particularly to the Georgia, not South Carolina and Georgia, were shipped through Bonds Island. So in other words, Bonds Island had ships because they were a major operation, those Brits. But they had ships going 300 miles south, 300 miles north of the coast of Africa to pick up Africans. So you could see how 300 miles south from, Freetown Harbor can take you down to Liberia, Cape Mount area, northern part of Liberia, where, many of the Liberians enslaved would have come from. Yeah.
Wow.
And again, there were no lines of demarcation back then, right? So, where's Liberia, where's Sierra Leone?
Right. It was all a region. And I think, yes, I think sometimes we tend to forget that. Back in those days, it was not like this was Sierra Leone, this is Liberia, this is Guinea. It was just a region. It was that region. At times, it went through being called the Gold Coast, and even way back to the Songhai Empire and that kind of stuff. It was just a region. Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, plantation owners in America used to call it the colonies. No, I mean the colonies. Yeah. used to refer to that area as the Rice Coast. It
Right.
spanned 6 countries: Senegal from the north, down to the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and then Liberia.
Yeah.
That's the Rice Coast. Because again, if you go to these countries today, that's what we do. We eat rice sometimes 3 times a day. We've been doing that for eons.
I have a friend, Wemby Dimanja is from DRC, and he always teases me. You know, sometimes I put pictures about Thanksgiving. He says, "Plumber, I don't see any rice there."
Well, this has been truly amazing. We really appreciate your time and all the effort and everything that you've put in to get this heritage so stapled for the younger generation. Of course, it's good for us older generation, but we are sometimes when we know where we've come from, then we can really determine where we want to go. You know, and I think that what you have done is something that is going to be a legacy that's left behind for someone. It's something that's documented that they can go back to time and time again.
Yes.
So we really appreciate that and appreciate you for doing that for us. Now we have some people that are on. Some have said they want to do they want to be on that next trip. So can you give us an anticipated time? I know we're in a pandemic.
Right.
If we're looking at the future,
ballpark savings.
Yeah.
How much should folks put together as they begin to save toward this trip? Can you give us a ballpark figure? Let's say a 10-day
Sure, I
trip.
can. Okay. But I'm going to answer Mrs. Bill's question first. Is that okay?
That's fine. My man. Go ahead.
So with regard to our next tour, I mean, we can probably say in 2022 is safe, December 2022. But it's also possible, based upon how things go this year, since we're missing this year's, to do 2 next year in 2022. So to do two tours. And that tours are special, of course. There are different, many others, there are different other tours out there. But we take pride in what we do in terms of reflecting the accurate history. Like I mentioned, no one in Sierra Leone has done a tour that's based on slavery, resistance, and abolition. And we hope others join us in this. Again, this is not just about competition. We see ourselves beyond the tour group. I mean, we do tourism as part of what we do, but the idea is to bring, us back together as a people. And we'll be starting in Sierra Leone because that's what we know. But I urge and encourage people from Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, the Gambia, Angola to do similar things because, it's okay to talk the talk, but when we start doing these practical things, we cement these relationships and take things to a higher level where it ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I love
Well, let some practical stuff. I'm sure people want to connect with you after. Is there a Fambultik website?
Yes, we have a website. We have a Facebook page.
What is it? Okay, it's just Fambultik.
So the Fambultik is F, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, B as in boy, U as in unicorn, L as in Larry. That's Fambul. It means family in Creole. And then tick.
Is it fambultik.com?
Yes. Okay. That's T as in Tony, I as in Ian, K as in Kate. And that means tree. So family tree translates to Fambultik.
Okay.
.com. That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so I am really excited about this, and I know for people for people who do some of the kind of stuff we do, it's a labor of love. But a lot of this requires money. So I'm going to ask you, can people donate on the Fambultik website to what you're doing? Because I know to start something like this, you started out of your pocket, but this is a tremendous undertaking, Amadou. I take my hat off to you. It's a tremendous undertaking. So can people donate on your website if they want to help?
Not really.
Well, you gotta make it happen.
Not just exactly. So I'm going to have to rely on you. You're going to have to walk me through the, in terms of it. But it's a good point. It's just that we hadn't thought about it, from that perspective. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's a good point. We do what we do, though, for out of labor of love more so than anything else.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I'm sure there are people who want to get involved.
Yes, yes.
Just from the educational aspect of it, I can see all kinds of things happen. You know, curricula being developed, bringing into schools, and that's going to require some ducats. So we need to work on that, Amadou.
Why don't you and I be partners in that work?
We will work on that.
Yeah, I'm serious too, because I mean, we're a community organization, Farm Boutique, at least that's how we see it, right? And we work with a lot of people who just volunteer at the time. I have a bunch of people I'm, grateful to for these efforts that we just undertook in Sierra Leone a couple of years ago, including the director and producers and filmmakers and the group that went with us. One thing I'd like to say is that on this trip that we just saw the film of, we went with Gullah leaders in the Gullah community in many different. I'm not saying we went with all of them, or these are the only ones, but you see Rondays singing to a bunch of villagers. If you're all familiar with Gullah Island, where Rondays was the man and his wife Natalie went along, and their children, their whole family went to Sierra Leone. There's a Dr. Veronica Gerald, who's a director emeritus at Coastal Carolina University, worked at Penn Center. We have Victoria Smalls, the Morans and the Relaffords. Their story is linked to that song, and we went to that village. But even over and beyond the trip, go ahead.
Thank you so much for that information. But there's someone here that said, please answer Plummer's questions on the savings tour this trip.
Oh, the trip, yes.
They are very interested.
I will tell you. I mean, and I'm a very transparent guy. Those who know me know that. The last time we went, we charged $3,700 per person. And it was undercharged because we felt the brunt of that in retrospect. So we charged $3,700 the last time for 10 days.
Okay. Right? Now, is that inclusive of airfare or just
everything? Food, transportation. It was about it was an average of about $3,700 per person. Some people paid later, so they paid a higher, airfare. Those who were in the early game, so it was about $3,700 total for everything. But like I said, we realized there was an undercharge to that. So I would say anywhere from $4,000 to $4,500 would be a good savings on a trip like that. If you go with us, and we provide value for money. In fact, more than value for money, I think. But also, I'm not here to promote tourism. I'm here to promote, a mindset, a thinking, a change of narrative kind of thing. Tourism is part of it. Yeah. You mentioned about the young generations. Very soon, we'll be having these types of dialogues with Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora, our children, that don't know what it means to be Sierra Leonean in America. And that's inclusive of Gullah young ones too. And the DNA Sierra Leonean, I call them Sierra Leonean Americans, that community also. So we have a plan for these groups, and hopefully we can continue these dialogues on your page, on your website, and share the information.
Amadou Massally, folks, thank you so very much.
Yes.
He's a treasure trove of information. I've known Amadou since we were kids. I can't even begin to tell you how fulfilling this has been for me.
Yes.
If you want to,
truly an honor to have you on the show.
If you want to get in touch with Amadou, they are on Facebook. They've got a Facebook page. Just do a search for Farm Boutique, or you can go to their website. I've put the website up there for you. Thank you so very much, Amadou. We'll do this again. We'll do this again.
It was a pleasure.
So we're not going to wait for Black History Month anymore.
Okay.
We're not going to do that. Thank you very much.
There's a whole lot more where this came from, I can assure you.
All right. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Regards to the family.
Yes.
Likewise to you guys too.
All righty.
Yeah. Last day of Black History Month.
Yes. Close it out great.
Yes. This was meaningful. Well, folks, there you have it. Candid dialogues where we talk about things that matter to you and things that matter to us. I'm Plummer.
I'm just so full. That was just so awesome. It was just a pleasure to hear and to see. But again, you haven't seen everything. Go to his website or, go to YouTube, and definitely the entire documentary is there for you to see. I think that towards the end of I don't want to spoil it for you. You got to see the whole documentary.
You got to watch all of it. Watch all of it. It will bless you. It will bless you. All right, folks. That's it.
All right. God bless you all.
Remember,
have a great week.
Success is only one candid dialogue away. We will see you next week. We've got a great show for you next week.
Thank you.